You want overreactions? I'll give you overreactions. We're going to tell you what's going on in the first 2 days of fall camp, and, well, you know the rest.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Hello, I'm Stephen Willis, and this is an extra edition of the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. Camp ended a little bit late last night. We wanted to do an episode today to get you caught up, and we are going to overreact to something on today's show that we think everybody is probably interested in right now. But before we get started, I do want to let you know that our Discord is in open enrollment this month. And this month only, starting September 1st, it becomes a private board. So join the Discord. It's like a chat room type community, and it can be a little bit intimidating, but once you figure it out, it's pretty good with the way it's set up. So join that. The link is always in the description. If for some reason you can't get in, DM me. I will let you get in this month because it has expiration dates on it after 7 days, because we want the private board to actually be a private board. All right. Ayden Williams is the story that has emerged in the first 2 days of fall camp, and I'm really, really excited about it. We have this video that was released by Ole Miss Football that showed Jaxson Dart completing a touchdown pass to Ayden Williams and describing him as special. I noticed a couple of things on this video, and whenever I watch these things, I break down the most minute parts of it. But the things that stuck out to me are these two things. A, Ayden Williams is really good, and Ole Miss is obviously propping up, for lack of a better word, Ayden Williams, hyping him up, maybe that's a better term, going in there, because he's shown that he can be an asset for the team moving forward. I like Ayden Williams. I saw him at the Under Armour All-American game. I told everybody for multiple weeks he was one of the better players there. Now, he's not one of the better players that statistically showed up, but he was one of the better players with route running and hands. He had natural hands in catching the ball. And you could see that if he could figure out a way to separate from SEC cornerbacks, which honestly that jury is still out, he had a chance to be really, really special at Ole Miss. And Ole Miss putting number one on him from the start is a sign of what this player can be, honestly. Now, the other thing from that video that stood out was Jaxson Dart completing a pass over the middle of the field. We've harped on this for a year. Yeah, I mean, it's literally been a year at this point that the middle of the field has been a little bit of a problem in Jaxson Dart's game. To see a highlight, and in the spring, there was other highlights across the middle of the field that showed up as well. You can see that at a minimum, Jaxson has worked on this part of his game. Again, we have to see whenever the pads come on, whenever SEC defenses are in front of him, all of that stuff. All I'm saying is the early returns are really, really good. And I think with the emergence of Ayden Williams and Jaxson Dart, his ability to use the middle of the field could mean the offense is really going to open up. Now, a couple of media members were there. We were scouring Twitter for what was going on. This is from Michael Katz from the Daily Journal. His observations from tonight's practice, or last night's practice, is Jaxson Dart looks really sharp. This echoes what we've heard. And I mean, for like 4 weeks at this point, we've been told, and everything was, hey, this quarterback competition was more of a quarterback competition last year than this year. And that's even with this quarterback room being as good as it is. And that piqued our interest, and we were like, hey, that might not be right. That just doesn't sound right. But B, if it is, we need to think about for a second what that means and what that could be. The other thing is Quinshon Judkins looks bigger and stronger. Yes, whenever you saw him run the ladder drill, there's a video on Twitter He was bigger than everybody else out there with the smoothest legs. This is potentially the best player in college football, and he is growing into it. I think Quinshawn has a chance to be a special player in 2023. He might not run for 1,600 yards, though. I think 1,200, you should be okay with 1,200 yards and increased workload in the pass game. Again, Ayden Williams is a dude. He made a couple of catches in the practice that was just completely unbelievable. And Austin Simmons, he's starting to flash. We told you he would flash in fall camp. People are starting to sit up and take notice. This quarterback room is actually 4 deep at the moment. And Austin Simmons is 17 years old. So he is competing. Austin Simmons, when we bring him up, and I hope everybody can understand what is going on here. But when we bring up Austin Simmons, we bring him up in the 2024 context. The competition with Walker Howard, not Walker Jones. Walker Howard and Austin Simmons competing for a hypothetical 2024 quarterbacking job. So we are talking about that. We're not talking about him competing for the job this year. He needs seasoning. He needs work. Walker Howard needs seasoning, needs work. Both elite quarterbacks. But we did mention he was going to flash. Walker's going to flash some. We saw him in the spring game, exactly what he can do as well. Now, other people are starting to take notice as well. It's going around the things I'm hearing about the offense already. Get your popcorn ready, Rebs. That's from the Reb Cup Rebellion, I believe. So you can see where Ole Miss's offense is ready to completely take off, honestly. And it's important to realize, though, like I said, we're overreacting to all of this stuff. And my overreaction, I'll go ahead and say this. My overreaction for after 2 practices is Zakhari Franklin better hurry up and get back. Or Ayden Williams will end up he'll Wally Pippin. That is absolutely a possibility. He needs to get into the playbook, which I absolutely assume he will. Ayden's a really, really nice young man. And when you talk to him, he's also a really smart young man. And he is going to be able to pick up Ole Miss's offense and the intricacies of it, which means I think David Johnson yesterday said that he expected Zakhari Franklin, just guessing, somewhere around the Alabama game. If that happens and Ayden Williams gets 3 games worth of lead up against those opponents, Zakhari Franklin's going to back up this season. That is my overreaction going into this year. And this is a Zakhari Franklin that rewrote the UTSA record books. That is one of the top returning players in college football this year. That shows you how good of a camp Ayden Williams is having moving right now, honestly. I do want to let you know that today's show is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Now, we are all aware how to create a social media profile. That's just a part of our life at this moment. Seems like every other week, a new social media platform comes out of the woodwork. So create that profile. But this is the difference. On LinkedIn Jobs, add a purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn Jobs profile to spread the word that you're in fact hiring. It's got simple tools like screening questions that make it easy to focus on the candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small business rates LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. We're overreacting to practice number 2, which happened Thursday night on the campus at Ole Miss. And the big star that has emerged after the first two practices is absolutely Ayden Williams. Now, listening around, I do want to let everybody know what I picked up on the grapevine. I heard Brad Logan talk about on his Red and Blue Crew podcast. That was a debut podcast. If you want to search that, you can. It's the Red and Blue Crew podcast. And he mentioned that 12 personnel is absolutely coming into the fold this season. And this is another one of our pet projects that we've been talking about for 3 months. To know that it could actually be coming to fruition makes us really, really happy. And that the stories with the offense is what it is. The use of the middle of the field with both of those tight ends could completely unlock what we're doing. Even though we have a little bit of a logjam developing out wide at wide receiver, with the best player in college football behind me, I'd have to love being a quarterback in this Ole Miss system with those wide receivers and those tight ends. I mean, you could line up in 12 personnel. That's one back, one running back, two tight ends, and have Michael Trigg, who is an absolute freak of nature, that Lane Kiffin described him pass catching as looking like a high school kid playing with junior high kids. Now, the injury and everything and all that derailed last season. Last season was not good. That does not mean the ability isn't there. So he needed to be pushed. What we learned is he needed to not be a guy. He needed to not be the inline tight end, the H-back type tight end. He needs to be a flex type tight end, playing close to the line of scrimmage, but off the ball, ready to go, where he's essentially a wide receiver, even at 240 pounds. And Caden Priestcorn will allow him to do that. The other tight ends that Ole Miss have brought in haven't allowed him to do that. One name that we have not heard the first 2 days that we're eagerly waiting to hear something on is Hudson Wolf. I get questions in my comments all the time about Hudson Wolf. We're waiting to hear if his name pops at all, if it flashes at all. Because if Hudson Wolf can gain any semblance of competency at tight end to where he becomes a third option out of that, and you have a 3-man rotation, you have a chance that the tight end becomes almost a strength of the team, because you remember, you have Kyron Heath, you have Javante Connor. All of a sudden, this room is very deep. So at tight end, that is an area that people need to keep an eye on when it comes to Ole Miss football. That I didn't list it technically as an indicator. I listed Michael Trigg, but with Caden Priestcorn and the other players that are going on in the locker room, that is worth paying attention to as well. Should be really good indeed. Anyway, when we come back, we are going to do a little bit of viewer mail. This is a little bit shorter show. I get that, but there is an extra show. But when we come back, we are going to do a little bit of viewer mail. This show is brought to you by eBay Motors. For a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is the perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay's guaranteed fit, you can be sure every part of your car and need fits right the first time. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check mark to know that your part will fit right, or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when you know the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay's guaranteed fit is only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. All right. Thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Everydayers, hey, this is the extra episode. We've got Derek Vandegrift, Tom Vanderford, and Brian Smith coming up this weekend. So they'll get you covered until we'll start hammering college football and fall camp again. Now, after post practices, we're planning on doing extra videos, and we can cover that as well. But as it sits, those 3 interviews are guaranteed to happen. I do not know when the extra video will hit. I know they're practicing sometime Saturday, but will it be Saturday morning? Will it be Sunday morning? Saturday night? Will it be Sunday morning? We'll have to decide whenever the video goes up. All right. Viewer mail this is turning into a really big portion of the show, and I enjoy doing it. I get asked questions to make me think about avenues and areas of the team that I'm probably not focusing on. So it's really interesting to me. The thing that comes up today is from Joe B. And he says, do you think with the addition of all the new linebackers and the change in scheme, we will show blitz more this year? And I sat here and thinking the first thing, my reflex reaction is yes, absolutely. And then I started to think about exactly maybe what he was asking. Says, will we show blitz more this year? Or will we blitz more this year? And that I don't know about, because coming from the Alabama system, even with the UTSA background and the Delta State and all of that stuff, the defense for Alabama, they didn't show blitz much. They had the athletes to kind of get there, and Ole Miss does have athletes in certain places. For instance, they are more likely to let Suntarine blitz from back at the will linebacker position without moving up to the line of scrimmage than somebody else. Monty Montgomery is athletic enough for that to happen. Ashanti Cistrunk is athletic enough for that to happen. And I've heard that Jean Baptiste also is there. Khari Coleman is there as well. So we got some really athletic guys at the linebacker position. So I don't know if we'll show blitz more this year, but I do think we're going to blitz more this year. I do think this is going to be an attacking-oriented defense for the Ole Miss Rebels this season. I think the goal of this defense will be to get a big sack, to force a 3rd and forever, to get an interception, a fumble. It's going to be a very aggressive attacking defense because they know their main job is to get possessions for this offense. Are there going to be games when this defense gives up 25 points? Yes. We are not dealing with 2011 Alabama out there. Nobody needs to have that expectation. We're going to have a good defense. We have a good scheme, and we have an excellent defensive coordinator, but it is going to take time. And part of what he does, if you go back and look, and the games are still on YouTube, you can go back and see how UTSA played back in like 2016 and 2017 when he was the defensive coordinator for the Roadrunners. And you will see a really aggressive defensive coordinator. Now, the thing also you need to recognize when you watch those games is them being as aggressive they were. They were very susceptible to things like screen passes, counter plays, and reverses. Anti-flow plays generally worked against the defense more so than the other type plays. As it stood, the defense was really, really good. But whenever they messed up, it was usually a counter flow play. So that is something to keep an eye on this year as well. Will Ole Miss struggle against them? I'm not saying they will. I'm saying that UTSA struggled against them in 2016 and 2017. So we will see exactly what happens to the defense moving forward. It's going to be fantastic, honestly. So I do want to let everybody know you can join our Discord server. We have it set up. We've got moderators now, 5 or 6 people. They're the powder blue names that you'll see on our Discord server. They are there to prevent raids from happening, which we can thank our Auburn friends for yesterday. And now that that's going, it was always going to happen. We can take care of that server and make sure that it is basically safe for everybody. But, a lot of them was pretty funny. Just when it became a raid, they all had to go. So join the Discord server. It's going to become a private message board. Let's see, September 1st before the Mercer game. And you have a chance to talk, commune, all of that about Ole Miss sports. We have a super private message board that after you prove your worth on the regular message board, you'll be invited to. Right now, there's like 12 people in there, and we're having really good conversations about Ole Miss football as well. So it's a tiered system. We've got a private message board inside of a private message board. It's like an Inception type situation. So it should be really fun. But the link is in the description. Sign up. If the link does not work, which sometimes it doesn't because they expire, you can DM me directly and I'll get you the link. So thank you very much for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Hope everybody has a good day today, and pay attention. Like Brian Smith tomorrow, we're going to talk about Nareel White. We're going to talk about Dylan Hip. Those will be the subject matter of the Saturday morning recruiting episodes. And then we've got Tom Vanderford and Derek Vandy Griff on Sunday. And we have practice coverage whenever it hits. I think the next practice is Saturday. So the video will either be Saturday night or Sunday morning. So stay tuned for that. Anyway, until then, hotty toddy.